It's not as slick as Google Hangouts. I've had audio quality problems.
Right.
And sharing, you can share a document at a time. You can't share your whole screen. So if you're going from window to window, for instance, in a browser, it's
Yeah.
very awkward. But anyway, it shows promise if Google Hangouts goes away.
Oh, okay. Now, Joe, you had another question which I hadn't really answered, and that was around the, let me just have a look at Slack. It was around on the business side of things. Do I know any users that would use this platform, applications or platforms that would work in the same area? Now, there are a couple of companies, stroke organisations here in Australia. There's one called Reposit Power. I'll post these to Slack afterwards anyway. And they have set themselves up to do peer-to-peer trading. There's another one called Power Ledger, and a similar thing. They sort of operate at that end and within the current policy restrictions, so what they're allowed to do. And I think with Power Ledger, they mainly trade behind the meter, so that there's a community energy development scheme that's been set up, and that they're you know, within that group. So people are, I mean, all parts of the proposed system have been done in one form or another somewhere. I don't think anybody's quite pulled it all together. Certainly in an with an open source approach. Initiatives have come from manufacturers of inverters and storage systems, and they tend to be proprietary. But SMA is that they're a big inverter manufacturer, are trying to promote the EE bus standard, and that's really the European standard, whereas the Open Connectivity Foundation standard is an American. But they've come to an agreement to interoperate, so that they're quite complementary, you know, in conflict at all. So we could really base it on adhering to both. Anyway, what I wanted to talk about was actually setting up the project. Sorry, what was you saying? What does trade mean in this context? So energy trading is what I was meaning, where we have, say, an exchange, so that much like a stock exchange, where people trade energy at the going price, which would depend on demand. And it would provide a way of, you know, providing a price signal or use up excess power. So when there's a lot of, say, wind or solar, then there's a lot of power being generated, and power would be cheap, and people who want to, or industries or whatever that want to buy that power cheaply will be able to do it. By the same token, households that want to self-consume as much as possible, or perhaps keep their energy costs down, might choose to buy power when it's cheap, store it, or store and sell power when it's expensive, and you know, get a better return perhaps that way. So the business model could be quite complex overall, and rely on these systems to manage it at their particular level, and people being able to set their own rules as to when they would want to store power or trade it. So,
So
really,
Paul,
that's the yeah.
sorry. I was just going to say that it seems like your intent for this, from what I could pick up on Slack, your intent for this first meeting was just to talk about getting the infrastructure, the scaffolding for the project set up,
Yes,
including
exactly right.
GitHub and Waffle and Slack and all that good stuff,
Yeah.
and then come
So
together later and talk about further research to figure out where we can add value and what we might want to do as an MVP.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, because you know, until we've got the basic project framework in place, you know, we can't really kind of allocate tasks and track
And I
things and develop the architecture and things like that.
and I think if we had a GitHub account set up in a wiki where you could post those links you mentioned, rather than just to Slack for
Yeah.
things like useful reading, etc. Because you're way ahead of us in terms of learning about this.
Right.
I've started poking around. There's a lot to learn, but I don't know what's real pertinent and what's not. You have a better sense of that, and we can start trading
Yeah.
ideas on the wiki as well. That'd be
Yeah,
helpful.
it's a very complex area, and I think nobody can really be across all of it.
Yeah,
You sort of have to pick your own area, and you know, the area where you have expertise and contribute in that area.
exactly. So, what are the targets
So
of opportunity for us? We don't know at this
yeah,
point. Yeah.
well, you see, personally, my area is business analysis and architecture.
Hmm.
So you know, enterprise systems. So that's probably where I would put my effort into.
Yeah.
I think through SEN of electrical engineers that belong to SEN that would have expertise in that area, who have expertise in embedded systems, development of firmware. You know, there's all sorts of areas. I think draw on the expertise of others. I mean, really, that's the whole idea: is to create this virtual team using the AV methodology and approach to pull it all together.
Absolutely. No, that's a great idea. Um,
So, I mean, what would you suggest? I mean, have set up a GitHub repository, you know, an organisation, and you know, you can set up projects under that and that sort of thing, and associated wikis and code repositories. They also have a project board, but I've noticed that you don't tend to use theirs. You for MetPlus, you use Waffle.io.
I think Hugh can answer this better than I can, but I think we weren't able to use the project capability in GitHub because we have a separate repo just for issues tracking because we had two different code
Right.
repos that are aggregated by the issues tracking repo. And that didn't lend itself to using the project capability that that
Okay.
GitHub provides. That's what I think the story is.
I noticed when you create the project in Agile Ventures, it suggests Pivot Tracker, I think it is.
Pivotal Tracker.
Pivotal Tracker.
That's a common one. It's free as well for open source.
Yeah.
It's I think probably more fully featured with GitHub. We usually use the HVentures.
Yeah.
I see. So
It goes saying,
he was suggesting we use the Agile Ventures or umbrella organization for this
okay,
project repo underneath,
with project under Agile Ventures.
which makes sense. Yeah.
That would mean you'd have to create the project.
I think
Or
once you
someone
get
with
the
admin.
yeah, somehow we have to go in. Okay, project. This is the maintainer somewhere. Okay, but we'd have to create this project under Agile Ventures organization within GitHub. And I don't know
Yeah,
if we have rights to do that or if Sam would have to do that.
I see.
Oh, Hewitt's got rights to do that.
He did
I may have rights to
suggest
do it too.
he did suggest putting questions to him under the project support channel.
Oh,
It's PT or waffle. So what's your preference, Joe? PT or waffle IO? So you prefer Pivotal Tracker? Oh,
Well, he works for Pivotal,
yeah.
the people who makes Pivotal Tracker.
Yeah.
So he is a bit biased.
Yeah. 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 I've used both, so I don't mind. But that, they will integrate okay with GitHub. I mean, I've noticed you set that up so that when you, there seems to be some interoperability there.
There's very little interoperability with PT and GitHub. Waffle gives you the ability, and again, I'm kind of neutral on both. I like PT because it's got a lot of features, but you know, when you create a PR, PT doesn't know anything about that, so maybe you go back to the PT story and you add the PR number to PT. Maybe you put a link in PT pointing to the PR in GitHub, etc.
Yeah.
Much of that can be automated if you use Waffle because it's a GitHub
I thought so.
Yeah.
That's why I was kind of leaning towards using Waffle.
Yeah. The actual
I think the
story
interface
creation
is
and
okay.
management, it's got a lot less bells and whistles than PT does. So
You don't need much, do you, really?
flip of a coin. You don't need much typically, but.
Now, what other tools can you suggest?
I've only really used PT and Waffle, really heavily.
Right. What about setting up semaphore and pound and things like that? Perhaps
Yeah,
a
I
bit
think that
early in
would,
the day.
we would do that once we start getting code going. We'll have continuous integration hooks using Semaphore or Travis or whatever makes sense.
Yeah.
Semaphore can be configured to run things like Hound for code quality review, etc. We can set up test code cover, you know, all the stuff that we normally do.
Right.
It's all there for us.
Okay. Is there anything else you think we need at this stage?
Let's see. Let me see what he was. We had multiple. Right.
Extra repositories to need extra repositories anyway.
So if we've got a Rails piece and we've got a C++ piece or pieces,
Yeah, and it'll be
and
mobile.
then we create,
Android and iOS.
Yeah. So we would need to create an umbrella issues tracking repo.
Yeah, yeah. I think with GitHub you can track issues at both the organization and the project level.
What we did on MetPlus is we just created a MetPlus tracker, which integrates with the Rails and the Java side. Yeah. It's kind of all under the Agile Ventures organization, but we didn't need to do anything at that level to create that.
Yeah. Anyway,
we could start with Waffle and move on to PT if it makes sense later.
Yeah. Look, I'm familiar with Waffle, so we'll start with that.
Okay. Sounds good.
I'm continuing on developing the prototype. I've ordered a whole bunch of parts which haven't arrived yet. So that's my main focus, along with also developing the overall architecture to provide a framework, you know, and that'll be based on the prototype. So the prototype really is like an MVP. It touches on most aspects of what will become the solution. But it would be greatly elaborated beyond its initial capability.
Well, can I didn't want to get into detail too much in this because I know that wasn't your intent, but since you mentioned that, so I think your prototype, your MVP, includes device level integration using the IoTivity framework, et cetera, to talk, manage,
Yeah.
and do things like that.
Mhm.
I was wondering also if there's an initial opportunity for us to actually talk, and you would know this better than me, to talk to device manufacturer specific command and control applications. They all have that, like SMA, I'm
Yeah.
sure, has their own application that will talk to their devices. And if it was open such that we could actually interrogate and get data from it,
Yes.
we may have, and even effect request control operations, we may have enough data to start working at the nanogrid connectivity layer and start thinking
Yes.
about how we connect nanogrids. But
Yeah.
underneath,
Yeah.
we're not talking directly to devices. We're talking to manufacturing specific control apps that have the controls available and the data access available to allow us to work at a
Yeah.
higher level. And we stay away
Yeah.
from talking directly to devices. Is that a possibility? Or we
Yeah, I think so.
okay?
A lot of these things will emerge, as we actually get into it and we learn a lot more about it. For example, SMA do have a home manager system.
Mm-hmm.
They're building that to be compatible with the EE-bus protocol because they're promoting it.
Yeah.
But that's mainly so that people can use their system to control their appliances around the house.
Well,
So yeah, and I
here's
think
what.
they would be, interested in opening it.
Yeah. So maybe
Yeah,
that's where we apply pressure. Because if we have an
yeah,
SMA device that we're trying to talk to directly, I would imagine
yeah,
that it would not allow itself to be communicating to a non-SMA client, if you will. That it would talk to only its own proprietary client. It
No, I
being
think that
server
they
device.
wanted it to be open because they
But
sort of see their business.
it wouldn't allow us to effect control operations on the device, though, right? We'd have to go through the SMA management
Well, I don't
application.
know.
Okay.
Um,
I'm just thinking
yeah,
out loud here, and again, we're probably getting too much in the weeds here. It's just that
yeah.
we need to learn more.
And anyway, there are other manufacturers than SMA, that have their own systems. I don't think they would see it in their interests to keep things proprietary and closed.
You wouldn't
That would
think.
limit their own. Yeah, it would limit their own marketing opportunities.
I would think so.
Hmm.
So there's a lot we don't know at this point, certainly.
Yeah, it's going to be a massive learning curve. I'm estimating that it'll take several years to get this all really up to some kind of, really working system. I mean, what's your feeling?
I
You
do
don't know.
too. I think
Yeah,
from my point of view, if we've got to kind of learn where the opportunities are for us to provide value before we
yeah,
embark upon an MVP. And if the opportunity includes direct device communication, low level stuff like that, then so be it. But if the opportunity exists
yeah,
to tie together these management and control systems and do something at a level above that to interconnect
yeah.
nanogrids and start thinking about trading opportunities, et cetera, and forming microgrids, all the things that you referred to in your kind of summary, then maybe that's what we
Hmm.
focus on. We stay away from
Yeah.
low-level device stuff.
Although I think, you
I
see,
don't
there's
know.
different people will be interested in different things. Some people will be very interested in the IoT side of things
Mm-hmm.
and in building home-based systems and using perhaps the framework to do that, and less
Yep.
interested in energy trading.
Right. Right.
Anyway, I also had discussions today with Frontier Impact, and they have something to do with financing community-based energy projects.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
And they're also quite keen to tee up with Sen here and we're looking for contacts in Sen that had the ear of the government minister. So if things develop, then we might actually get it up to a point where we can get sponsorship, like financial sponsorship to promote it further.
That'd be cool.
It's
So,
very,
Paul,
very pie in the sky.
I know you explained to me. Well, what's SEN again? Can you?
SEN is sustainable energy now. It's an organisation that campaigns for renewable energy, and that, in particular, it's in Western Australia, and they're targeting the government here. The government owns the electricity grid in WA, and there's been a change in government. The new government is a lot more sympathetic towards renewable energy, and currently power is subsidised, so it costs them money to supply power to people, particularly in remote areas. And it's these sort of edge of grid remote areas that would most benefit from putting in microgrids and being able to, sort of generate and store and share their own energy. So there's a big need for it. And the government, if it was presented properly, would be interested and would be prepared to, sort of affect changes in the governing rules and so on around the electricity system.
Are you a member of SEN, Paul?
Yes, I am.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, I joined actually specifically to promote this because while I'm interested in the group, in my view, the best way to to promote their objectives was to actually start to do something practical in terms of, promoting it rather than just lobbying the government.
Absolutely.
Because it just turns out to be a kind of an exercise in idealism, I guess. The thought that this is what we should do. Ever done it, and we're not sure whether it can be made to work.
So let's roll up our sleeves and actually do something, huh?
Yeah, do something to show it. Start from the grassroots. Build these systems that can be then interconnected. That's basically the plan.
And do you think you can? It sounds like they've got a bit of clout with the government, and maybe they're kind of a semi-lobbying organization, even.
Yeah, they are basically.
Okay. And if you can get them behind this effort, you show them something that's real, that might be pretty powerful. Is that the thought?
Well, exactly right. I mean, they're interested, but want to see more detail. They said, "Oh, well, when it gets to a certain stage, present it to the membership, and of course, anybody that's interested can volunteer to work on it." But I think before they made any more commitment, they would have to, see a working system that could be demonstrated.
Okay. Are there any other experts out there that have been looking at this like you?
There are a lot of people. I mean, it could be that we'll make a start and then just be completely overtaken by other events and developments elsewhere.
Well, you must be in contact, or could be put in contact with people who we could ask the question to, which is, where is the area of, given your vision of what you want to do, and most of your vision, the value add of most of your vision, I think, is above device community. It's interconnecting, it's microgrid creation, aggregation, and management, and it's energy trading and dealing all of that. Given your vision of where you want to go, where are the opportunities available for people like us, third parties who want to roll up the sleeve and do something? You know, there
Opportunities,
may
what
be
do you mean in
people
the
out there that
sense
may
of
be able to
business?
help us with that question.
Oh, there are many people who can help us that have expertise in particular areas. You know, as I said, electrical engineers, software engineers, developers of commercial systems, as well as, you know, sort of microgrids and, you know, people like that, or
Okay.
organisations that do that sort of thing. So I don't
Well,
think
my
there's
point is,
any.
yeah, sorry to interrupt, but my point is if we start talking to electrical engineers, by
Yeah.
default, we're down a path of communicating with devices. And that may not be the way we can best add value. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, but
Yep.
that would just be one aspect of it, and it would be driven by the interests of those people. So if they
Exactly.
wanted to contribute at that end of it, then we'd be happy to accept their input. So I think that's the strength of, you know, this approach, is that, you know, we accept that there's a lot we don't know.
Mhm.
We only have limited expertise and, you know, certain particular areas, but there are people out there that do. And if we can kind of pull them together, you know, working within a framework, then it can happen.
Yeah. So, given where we are now, you have this vision, this concept that's rather high level, which it should be at this point.
Yeah.
How do we get to go from that to a point where we've identified our biggest area of opportunity to provide value, and it's from that breakdown to some MVP features that we start to build?
Well, this is where company or organisations like Frontier Impact spoke to today, I think, can provide input. I mean, they because they deal with and represent a lot of community-based projects, mainly around the financing and side of things. They would perhaps be able to provide input in terms of requirements.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
what would be useful to them? What would they like to see in such a system?
Ah, perfect. Yeah. Great.
So I think we can identify actual end users, which I think, you know, we need to.
Mm-hmm.
That's aside from you know, individual homeowners that might get benefits from managing their home devices. But that's not really the, you know, the main objective.
Yep. Yep. Got it.
Lots of people are
Absolutely.
doing that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm. At that level.
Mm.
Okay.
Joe's saying, well, it'd be interesting to do some user interviews to see what they want for a system like this. Absolutely, yes.
Mm.
I'll just see where things go with, you know, Frontier Impact. The lady who I spoke to, she was the director of the organisation, and she was going to send it off to somebody who was an IT expert in the electrical industry. You know, sort of knew a lot about front of office systems, back end systems, and so
And you
I
said
sent,
Mhm.
yeah, I emailed an outline of what I was proposing to her, and she was going to pass it on to this guy, and so I guess I'll get his reaction to it.
And they're Frontier Impact is a financing organization for renewable energy
Yeah,
implementations.
yeah, mainly. I sent off. They were advertising a financing kit that was directed towards community solar projects,
Ah,
and then they contacted me and asked what my interest was, and I explained, and so that's what led to this.
do they have a view on trading and things like that? Or are there more specific project financing issues?
Oh, really, project financing.
Okay.
Because this is where, sort of small communities, edge of grid people and so on, want the ability to be able to, say, island themselves from power outages, which are quite frequent, when you're on the edge of the grid, as well as to save the cost of running, transmission lines over long distances. So it can be a lot cheaper to, say, set up your own solar panels with storage, battery storage. All that's becoming quite big now. Operate on their own.
Cool. Isn't Elon Musk doing something in Australia with respect to battery storage systems?
Yeah, in South Australia, they had, because they've been shutting down their coal power stations, and they got hit by a big storm, and it, a number of transmission towers that cut off the interconnect between themselves and Victoria, and it blacked out the whole state. So opponents of renewable energies use that as an excuse to bag renewable energy. In fact, that wasn't the cause. It was the storm plus failure of the interconnect and other things, and transmission lying down. But they've tried to make themselves a lot more resilient. And famously, I don't know if you heard it, but Elon.
Of what?
Sorry, Patrick.
I was going to say,
yeah, Elon Musk.
He would make it kind of.
He would fix the system in 100 days, or it would be free. So he was going to provide. They ended up by putting it out to tender, and he won the tender, and under those conditions as well. So he's now going to provide the world's biggest battery to date, although there are other bigger ones that are, I think, in the pipeline in other places. So it's all a bit of an experiment, that they're doing there to really say that, we don't need baseline coal-fired power stations. We can use renewable energy, providing we put in these sort of smart grids and storage and so on. That's all done at the utility level.
Yeah. Paul, I just note that Hugh said he might be cut off in a bit. Do you want Hugh to go ahead and create at least an initial GitHub repo underneath the Agile Ventures organization?
Yes, okay.
Since he says that he's got the capability to do that. And an initial waffle, I guess, on top of that too would make sense.
Yeah, just the basic, thing needed to run the project.
Okay. Hugh, can you do that? I don't know if you can hear that. Okay, good. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Joe.
So we've already got your Slack channel set up. So you're good to go there. And have you created an Agile Ventures project on the site yet? On the Agile TV site?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So we can start putting these links in there once we get them.
Yeah.
Or you can. Be in the. Let me know what I can do to help out.
Well, there's certainly
in the meantime,
plenty to do.
What's that?
There'll be certainly plenty to do.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you want to start putting links up on a wiki page or something, of good background reading, that would be great. I'll definitely dive. I've already started looking at sites and things.
Yeah.
And as Hugh suggested, if we can line up talks with some players in different sectors, microgrid guy, finance people like you're doing, other people have different views. Everybody will have their own axe to grind, right? So it's good to talk to multiple folks.
Yeah. And, they'll be focused on their particular area of interest.
Yeah. unless it's clearly aligned with what we can do quickly to provide value, which is great. We're kind of
Yeah.
still in discover. We'll be in discovery mode, I guess, for a bit, for a while.
Yeah, but like we're doing something that really is leading edge, worldwide even.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, the hard part though is figuring out what steps, what direction do I start marching in when you've got something this big, so many different areas that one could invest time and effort.
But we'll have to choose something.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean,
All right. Well,
yeah. Yep.
we might as well wrap it up at this point.
When
I
would you like to
did
get together
record
again?
it. So. Look, I might leave it for a few days at least because I've still got a bit of setting up and that sort of thing to do.
Oh yeah.
And there won't be much more to talk about other than what we've already said for a while, yeah. But I'll schedule something, maybe in a week's time or something like that.
Okay. All right. And in the meantime, if you post reading assignments on GitHub,
Yeah.
we can continue to start poking around, learning on our own as well.
Yeah.
Cool. Sounds interesting.
Right. Well, tremendous talking to you. You still there, Patrick?
I am. I'm sorry, what
Okay.
was that last thing you said?
Yeah, I say tremendous talking to you.
Yeah, it's great talking to you too.
Yeah. And I'll be in touch.
All right. Sounds good.
Bye for now. Bye, Joe.
Bye, Paul. Bye, Hua.